Every time you would have to go to a new school, you can recreate who you are. Tested on almost 100 new things every day, and if you don't pass, you don't go to the next one. Nervous, because I do have a fear of public speaking, actually, believe it or not. I do love to teach, and I have a knack for teaching. The most important thing in gaining success is having an end goal. Change, whether it's positive or negative, is frightening. I do believe that all because you have a title of leader doesn't necessarily mean you have the qualities of that.
I am your host, Gaurav Garg, and we welcome all our viewers to our show, Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Jouhayna AlMheiri, one of the very few Emirati female air traffic controller officer in the world. Jouhayna AlMheiri on how using her voice has allowed her to follow her passion and inspire others to follow in her footsteps. Jouhayna AlMheiri is an air traffic control officer and on-the-job training instructor in the Sheikh Zayed Air Navigation Center in Abu Dhabi. She is passionate about training the next generation of air traffic controllers. She is currently working on MSc Artificial Intelligence. She is also a public speaker and an artist. Worldwide, only 1% of the applicants that apply to an air traffic control program successfully makes it through the selection process, and for female applicants that average down to 0.2%. She is to be among the 0.2%, making her the youngest and only second Emirati woman to successfully complete air traffic control training in the Sheikh Zayed Air Navigation Center in Abu Dhabi. She also has an inspirational message for other Emirati women. Action delayed is greatness betrayed, she said. So believe in yourself, and instead of saying one day I will do it, actively make it your day one to a better future. So it's a pleasure to welcome Jouhayna AlMheiri to our show, Amazing Mentor. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So we will right away start from your early student's day. So tell us, how were you as a student?
As a student, the earliest memory I have of school, honestly, it wasn't the best memories because I was bullied a lot. I'm mixed race. My father is Emirati, my mother is Tanzanian, and nobody understood why my hair is curly, why my skin is the shade that it is. They were always telling me I have to be one or the other. So because of other people's lack of understanding of a mix of cultures, I got bullied, especially in my early school days. And I ended up changing school 3 times because of how much I got bullied. And eventually, enough was enough. So I stood up to my bullies, stopped it from happening, and I decided to change the narrative for myself. In terms of school, I feel like I struggled to focus on certain subjects because I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And since I was younger, I always used to think so many steps ahead. But every time I would look into the future and I'm like, okay, what should I study to focus on as an adult? What job would I like? People ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I never knew the answer to that question. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, I never knew the answer. So I struggled to focus on the subjects I needed to focus on in school in order for me to have that focus on what I wanted to do at the end. So for example, my mother is a veterinarian. So she wanted me to study medicine and go into the veterinary field or into human medicine. And I was good at biology. I didn't really like chemistry. Physics also was fine. So I was trying to focus on the sciences, but my heart wasn't there. I tried to focus on math. My heart wasn't there. I did it because it's what was expected of me, not because I wanted to. So my grades were good, but they weren't excellent. They weren't the way that they could have been because of the lack of goals at the end of it. And I feel like everybody around me always knew what they wanted to do with the rest of their life, and I was expected to know, but I truly didn't know. I knew my mother wanted me to be a vet, but I didn't know what I wanted to be, other than, and it falls in a very big umbrella of, I wanted a cool job and I wanted to have money. That's it. But what that would be, I had no idea. So it felt overwhelming to focus on so many variety of subjects when I didn't know what I wanted to do. So again, I passed just enough to pass high school, which isn't good enough to get into many scholarship programs. So I really struggled to find direction after I finished my schooling. But that was the experience. And I feel like people expect me as a person with all the achievements I've made as an adult, especially intellectually. Air traffic control is not a job that just anybody can do. They expect me to have been, yes, I got A++ in every subject and I knew what I wanted to do. No, I had absolutely no idea. And it's okay to feel that way, and you're not alone in that, because I know I graduated in 2012. So 12 years ago, Now, when I go speak at schools, I see that students are still going through the same, except now there's even more of that. Because before it's easy, like, okay, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to become doctor, a lawyer, engineer, vet, whatever it is. But now there's so many like miscellaneous jobs that you could get into, like getting into social media and blowing up that way. So I feel like it's a lot more pressure now on the children. So good luck to you, to whichever child is listening.
So, what about your favorite memories from your childhood?
My favorite memories, all of them involve my grandmother, my nani. So being mixed race from my mom's side, I call my nani Nanima, and I didn't realize it comes from India. So I'm pretty sure we have some Indian heritage because my grandma was orphaned when she was young. So I don't know exactly what her mix is, but I know I call her Nanima because that's what she told me to call her. So every memory that I have that is positive, makes me feel warm inside, even as an adult. My grandma, she's in town at the moment. I spent time with her and I felt like I was a little girl again. And I was like, oh my God, the love I have for this one human being is so immense. She was the one who helped raise me because my mother was starting her business. My father was working shifts in the police. So she was the one who took care of me. So she is my comfort. She is my sanctuary. She's my person to go to if I'm feeling a little down. I just hear her voice and I'm happy. And she loves to cook. She had her own little business where she would cook all these home-cooked meals and she would just sell them. And I would help her with that. So I used to call myself her chopper. So I'd cut all the vegetables and she'll do all the cooking and we would work together in the kitchen. So my most positive memories are with my grandma, especially when we're in the kitchen together.
So, what about any teacher who had particularly strong influence on your life?
It would be my ballet teacher. So I did ballet for 14 years. And her name was Miss Cheryl, and she was somebody who was such an integral part of my life because from the age of 4 until 14, I was going to school, didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, going through all the bullying. She was the constant that stayed throughout my entire childhood. And, she taught me discipline. She taught me resilience. She taught me how to be determined and have an end goal to focus on because we would have ballet examinations with the Royal Academy of Dance at the end of each ballet year. So I finished everything. She got me to reach a point of distinctions. That was the one thing I was really good at. I would always get a distinction in my examinations. And it was an international examiner that would come and do the examinations. So it was that confidence building as well for me because I'm like, I'm not doing that great in school. And, my mom's expectations of me were, if you can get 100, you should get 110. And I'm busy scoring 80s and 90s. So it was never good enough. But in ballet, I knew I was good enough. And every time I would think, oh, I can't, for example, do a pirouette, or which is, spinning on one leg, or do a splits in the air, she would teach me how to do something that I thought I wouldn't have been able to do. So she gave me the confidence I didn't know that I needed at the time. And now when I look back, Miss Cheryl was everything because if my parents were too busy to pick me up from ballet, she would go out of her way to drop me home because my grandma, as she got older, she wouldn't have been able to drive. So she was just always there and I knew I could rely on her. And even I used to work my way to pay for the ballet classes. And when I turned 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided to take 1 year to just try and figure it out. And I told her, I said, can I come and teach ballet with you just so I can pass the time and spend time with you and see if this is an avenue that I would enjoy. And I did that for about a year with her and really enjoyed it. So she was just there for me with whatever it is I needed outside of school.
So, apart from your school memories of bullying, are there any good memories from your graduation?
When I got into high school, that's actually when my good years in school started because I, again, went into a new school. Priyanka Chopra's book says, every time you would have to go to a new school, you can recreate who you are. And that's exactly what I did. In the last school, I said, I am not the girl who got bullied. I am not that person. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be loud and proud. And that's exactly what I did. So that is when I started to make more friends. That lasted throughout the whole high school career that I had. And I really enjoyed high school. That's the time when I really had the best time. And my mother put me in a school that is mixed with boys and girls, where usually there is the gender segregation after a certain grade in this country. So she said to me, the reason for that was, I don't want you to be shy around the other gender because they're the ones that you have to work with later in life. It's good that she did that actually, because I work in a male-dominated industry. And while potentially, hypothetically, some women would shy away from being the only girl in the building on a night shift, I'm over there and I'm not even fazed. So my mother's vision in that sense definitely helped later in life. And it helped me excel in a career that's already so stressful because I didn't have to sweat the small stuff. High school was great because I got to make friends. And for some reason, all my friends were always the boys. And I was one of the boys always. Maybe that's why I wasn't making that many friends, is because I was stuck in a classroom full of girls.
So what was your dream as a child, that I would be this when I grow up?
I wanted to have a cool job again, like I mentioned before, but I didn't know what it was. I just remember thinking, like, every time I watched like a spy movie, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's so dangerous, but so cool. And I didn't want to become a spy because it looked exhausting and you can't make friends really. But I knew I wanted to have a really good income. That was important because financial stability and security was something that I really wanted, because we didn't really have that growing up. And also I wanted stability in the finances that I got. So I wanted to have a job that I know I'm going in, and no matter what, I get my salary at the end. Because my mom having her own business, you know, when you have your own business, you can't, there's some months that are good, some months that aren't. And my mother was very transparent with me growing up. So I knew if we had a bad month, I would also be worried. How will we pay for our school fees? How are we going to pay for our home and on certain months? So I just wanted good money, stability, and it would be nice to have a cool job along with that. So that's what I wanted. But what exactly it was, I had no idea. I remember what I used to do is I would say random jobs to whenever adults would ask me when I was younger, and I would see what job excited the adult the most. So I'm like, oh, I would love to be a doctor. And everybody in the room's like, oh my God, you're so ambitious. I'm like, maybe that's what I should do, just to test the waters. And then in another circle of adults that I'm introduced to, what do you want to be? I want to be a vet like my mom. That is so sweet of you. So you can take over the business. And I'm like, maybe that's what I should do. So it was constantly changing. And I was just testing the waters every time somebody asked me to see what would also excite me as much as it excited them. But there was really nothing. So yeah.
What about your hobbies and interests?
As a child, definitely ballet and dance. So I did ballet, Bollywood, jazz. I was the firstborn, so my mom experimented with me. I did horse riding, I did swimming. So there were a lot of activities that my mom tried. For example, if you throw so much to a wall, like for example, like water balloons or whatever, maybe only one balloon will stick to the wall actually. And that one balloon was like ballet. So that's what I stuck with consistently throughout. At one point, I thought I preferred hip hop more, but I remember I was like dancing and there was like a small stage that the teacher would stand on in the dance class. And she told us, she's like, oh, you can dance however you'd like. And I was like, I'm going to use this prop. So I went and I got this like big exercise ball and I'm like, I'm going to use this in part of my dance. And I did a dance with the ball and I was like throwing it around and using it as a prop. And then I slid and I went face first into the stage and I smashed my nose. And yeah, and I was like, I think I'm going back to ballet. There's more structure in ballet. So that's what I went back to. So I decided to cancel that out. But it was mostly dance and being around animals. I know it's not a hobby, but I used to go to work with my mother every weekend because she wanted to instill a work ethic in me very early. And I would just love being around the animals. And I had a farmer's tan because I was always in the sun. So I was with the animals, loved that. To this day, I have 3 dogs, and that's me putting a limit on how many animals I have, just because animals and dance were everything to me growing up.
So what were the most important values you wanted to teach your family?
There was a lot of chaos and turbulence growing up, so it would have been nice for some silence. It would have been nice for some discipline because I had to become an adult very early. And I feel like I played mostly the role of parent very early on. So I don't have memories of being a child in my childhood. I was always doing damage control between my parents, always trying to make sure my grandma didn't get involved because, you know, she was older, always being the protector. So it would have been nice to be protected instead.
Where did you started your professional journey from?
I started my professional journey if I think about the application process, since I was 17 to 18. From when I actually joined and got into the program, I was 19 years old. So that's when it started.
So what was your first task in your professional journey?
To survive. So basically, air traffic control is an extremely stressful job. And it's stressful because you have hundreds and thousands of lives in your hands at any given moment in time. And at the age of 19, I wasn't even technically an adult when I started to learn about what I need to do in order to do the job well. As you mentioned, the success rate is extremely low. And I work in one of the most complex and busiest airspaces in the region. So it's very difficult to have people make it into the program and then complete the program. And the content that you're learning is so difficult, but also done in a time-pressured manner because they want to see if you are struggling to learn knowledge with time pressure, how can we trust you to control airplanes? So I remember the first week was the toughest because we had to memorize something like between 400 to 500 completely new things in a span of a week, but you're tested on almost 100 new things every day. And if you don't pass, you don't go to the next one. And the first week was the toughest, but now when I think about it, it's the easiest content or knowledge that I have learned because it's, for example, every airport has a location indicator. So it's a 4-letter code each airport has that you have to know off by heart by the end of the next day before you do your examination. As an example, each airline has a 3-letter code that you have to memorize, and you must know it so that when you're working, you don't have to think, oh, UAE means Emirates Airlines. You have to know it quick. So that pressure and that difficulty at the start is what was really intense. And thankfully, I didn't know what I wanted to do in school, but I had very good study methods. And those study methods helped me in that time because I used flashcards, memorization, knowing that I have to write with a blue pen so it sticks in my brain better, chewing gum. I tried every study tactic that I knew or read about, I used in that week to help me get through it. And then I used it for every week to come after that.
So from where did you get an idea to be an air traffic controller officer?
The idea came from applying to as many jobs as I possibly could. So around the time I was 16, 17, I noticed that my mom has been working extremely hard throughout my entire life. I don't remember my mother not working. And I started to notice that she was starting to get a little tired. She did have me a bit later in life, and I could see that happening. And I realized that I felt the need and the urge as the eldest child coming from an ethnic home that I have to step up and I have to financially provide and I have to take care of everybody. Again, I was constantly the protector, the carer. So I made the decision that because while I was working with my mother, part of the reason for that was because I wanted to contribute to the finances of the home, to pay for the schooling for my 2 younger sisters, to pay for our home, to take care of my nanima, everything. I took on that responsibility young, and when I was not going to school, I could help contribute more by working and answering the phone calls and everything. So I realized that I didn't want to become a vet. I did not want to do this job. I was very good at it because we generated a good amount of income while I was working. So I had that entrepreneurial, managerial spirit, and I knew I had that in me, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And also the farmer's tan wasn't doing it for me. So I just made the decision that I'm going to try and find a scholarship program that will pay me while they train me, because as an Emirati, they have certain programs where they're looking for Emirati talent to do such jobs. So air traffic control, pilot with certain airlines, aircraft engineers, urban planners. I applied to every single program that I could find. But because I just passed in school, they needed certain percentages. I think it was like 85%, and I scored something like 84, and that was the cutoff. So it was taunting me. This 1% killed me. And air traffic control, I think they needed 80. So I was like, all right, I need to get into this program. And I found out about air traffic control from my best friend in school. His name was Andrew, and his father was air traffic control in Sharjah. And he was telling Andrew, he's like, oh, why doesn't, because they knew I was lost. So he's like, why doesn't Joe apply to air traffic control in Tanzania? And then when the conversation came to me, I'm like, why can't I apply here? He's like, you have to be Emirati. I'm like, I am Emirati. People always assumed I was Tanzanian only because my mom was always so heavily involved in my life, and she's African, so I'm African. That's it. So when he found that I'm Emirati, he's like, there are hardly any Emirati women doing this. Apply. You never know what will happen. So that's where I found out about air traffic control, but I was looking for a scholarship similar too. So I got rejected or didn't get a response from multiple programs. It was very disheartening, very disappointing. And that's something I want to highlight because it wasn't all rainbows and glitter. And yes, I got in and it was easy, all because I started young. That year and a half, almost 2 years, was because I graduated. I didn't graduate early because of my intellect. I graduated early because my mom started me young. So 17 to 19-ish is when I was working with my mom. Air traffic control was the last one to get back to me. And I told myself I have to get into this program no matter what. So I got invited to do the entrance examinations, which was English, math, and physics, and a psychometric test, all time pressured. And I had a word with myself. I'm like, you have to make it. This is your last shot. And I well and truly did. I found that I got into the program. And then that is when that journey began with it, the intense week that I mentioned to you and all of that. So I mentioned this entire story because I feel it's important to know that it wasn't easy to get there in the first place. I was emotionally constipated. I didn't cry. I was just very upset and very down the entire time until I got something. And when I got something, I had to make sure that I definitely made it through because only one other Emirati lady had made it through the program, which is good, actually. It was much better for me because somebody paved the way and now it's my turn, to also join the workforce in that specific industry. And now we have more girls coming through and I get to be their instructor, which is such a beautiful full circle moment 10 years later. So it all worked out. And I now realize that this is what I was meant to do because not everybody can do such a job and not anybody can be good at this job. So the fact that I can do both, alhamdulillah, I'm glad that I got into it. And it is a cool job. So young me is very happy because I did end up getting what I wanted in that sense.
So among the all roles that you play as an air traffic controller officer, motivational speaker, MC, podcaster, artist, which one is your favorite and how do you manage to play so many roles?
With the artist, this is actually some art on my wall that I drew during the pandemic. You can see. So the artist, that I only did it in the pandemic, so I haven't actually drawn in a very long time. So that's how I could do that because then you just upload the art online and you see if it sells or not. So that's how I can do that. It's passive. And then if there are certain friends that want me to draw a piece for them, I tell them. I have very clear set boundaries on what my capabilities are and my availability and my mental capacity as well. So I let them know. I'm like, you let me know what design you want, send me a Pinterest board and leave me alone. Let it marinate. Eventually, you might get a piece and that's going to be your gamble. Sometimes I generate the piece of art in less than an hour. Sometimes I generate it in 6 months. The most flattering thing for me is that I've had people tattoo my art on their bodies. And I'm like, that's forever. Wow, you really love me. So the art, that's how I manage it. Podcasting is something that I've decided to focus on more at the moment. So I'm starting a new podcast where I include guests called Press Pause with Jouhayna. So we just yesterday recorded the teaser and the intro video, and I'm having my first guest, inshallah, coming tomorrow. So that's a very new venture. I actually haven't spoken about it anywhere. So you have this exclusive information. So that's what I've decided to focus on. And I feel it's important to focus on one thing at a time. With podcasting, public speaking comes into that. With air traffic control and people having interest to know more about it, that's also where I get the public speaking gigs from. And again, I have very clear boundaries with what I do. So I let people know, I'm like, hey, I'm a shift worker. My only available dates are so and so. If you can accommodate or if your event falls on those dates, I can make it. If not, I can't. And it's as simple as that. I will not stress myself out more because my job as an air traffic controller comes first. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have the other opportunities. So the way that I can manage doing all of it is by having set boundaries of I can only do it on certain dates because I'm not going to not go to work so I can do an event. So if the event falls on my days off, I will be there. I'll be there from the start till the finish, no problem, but only if it's on a day off and if I'm available. If my grandma's in town, all of February, I haven't accepted anything. I accepted this only because I promised you from months ago, but that's it. But otherwise, my nanny's in town. I haven't accepted anything to do this month, except for the podcast and everything, because she gave me her blessing to do it. So I was like, fine, nanny's approved it, and that's why I'm doing it. And I've only set 2 days of the month to do it while she's here. So with my education, I have the flexibility to do it within 4 years to do a 1-year degree. So I work 6 days on, 4 days off. If the course falls within my 4 days off, that's when I will do the course. So whichever module comes, if it falls within my time off, I'll do it. If it doesn't, I won't. And I'll just make sure that I finish it within the 4 years. And in 4 years, the probability of me finishing a 1-year degree, hoping it falls on my days off, is a high possibility. So that's what I do. Motivational speaking, this goes with the public speaking. If the kids in school want me to come and speak, the beauty of shift work is I'm off during the week if it falls on that time. So I do that for the kids, and that's actually one of my favorite things to do. I like to go to schools and speak to children because that moment of seeing them click of a new profession that they could potentially get into is everything. Because the limitations of what they're taught is you can become a pilot, and that's like, wow, the biggest thing. But the pilot is told what to do by air traffic control. So you could be that person. The fact that I can go and teach that to young minds and help spark inspiration, that is what brings me the most joy, because I love children. I love working with them. I love being around them. And I feel like that the innocence and the purity that they have is just, oh, I just love it. I just want to absorb it. So if I have to choose from all the other things I do from other than air traffic control, it would be doing the motivational speaking with the kids. That's the favorite. That's my favorite one. Because it falls under public speaking, but specifically in schools is my favorite.
So how has been your journey? What were up and down in your journey as an air traffic controller?
The ups would have been that I succeeded, and the men in my batch, we were all started young. So at the time we were boys and girls, and we grew into men and women. We all have a very strong bond, and these 5 gentlemen were and still are everything to me. We were so close because I joke, we trauma bonded with how difficult the course was, you know? So those were definitely the highs. I also went and studied in the UK. So they sent us for 4 months to do part of our training there. I ended up being put with a host family, and the lady who took me in, her name was Joy, and she was amazing. So that was also part of my high, because I had a support system in a country that was foreign to me while I was studying for a very difficult career. So that was definitely part of the highs. And now as an instructor, as well as working as air traffic control, I really enjoy working with the students and teaching them. So at the moment I have a female student, and teaching her and giving her the knowledge that I have and watching her thrive day to day is one of the highs of the job. And I absolutely love it, because I feel like I'm empowering her to be able to protect the skies of our country. And when it comes to the lows, it is a very stressful training program. It's not something I will ever sugarcoat, because it is so tough to persevere for 2.5 to 3 years studying with the pressure that we had. Yes, we were only studying from a book and presentation slides, and we were only working in a simulated environment for a while, but the pressure was on, because you have to pass each check every week in order to move on to the next phase. And then eventually you are working with real airplanes, you're adapting to shifts, you are working with almost a different instructor every time due to rostering and staffing. So you have to adapt based on what that instructor likes, because you have to work with that person and it's their license you're working on. So it's quite difficult to consistently adapt. We have to be adaptable, but adapting every day to a different person, to a different environment, to different pilots that you're speaking to was really intense. But it's definitely, all the difficult parts definitely added to personality building and character building, because it's made me a lot stronger. And then I know how to teach my students to build that resilience over time. Instead of the way that I was taught, I have a slightly different method, just because I'm like, this is what they have to deal with. So I teach them the way to be resilient and to figure out how they can use their own personal strengths to handle such a job.
So how was your first experience on the stage as a motivational speaker?
I remember my legs buckled and I was like truly nervous, because I do have a fear of public speaking, actually, believe it or not. And I hired a public speaking coach to help me overcome the fear and gain structure in my speaking. So the TEDx speech was also a motivational speech that I had done, and it was in a school. So it was like a perfect trifecta of everything I love about public speaking. But I remember feeling extremely nervous. I remember thinking to myself on stage that I'm so happy that I practiced the speech 300 million times because I didn't have to think about what I was saying. I just went on autopilot. That's how I felt. And when I was done, I remember thinking everything. When I hired my public speaking coach, she asked me, she's like, what do you want to gain out of working on this course with me? What is your wildest dream in public speaking? I was like, oh, I'd love to do a TED Talk. And then a TEDx speech is the same principle. It's just not in the US. Under a TED conference, they get the license to do it outside of that. So I ended up doing a TEDx speech. And after that, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I finished that. I was on a high, like, whoa, I got to do what I wanted to do. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, now what? I did what I was set. I did my wildest dream in public speaking. So now what? And that's how it felt. So those were the feelings that I went through.
Air traffic control is supposed to be a male-dominated field. How difficult or easy was it to make your name in it? And how do you, as a woman, feel about it?
So I was underestimated greatly, which I realized was actually a good thing because even if I showed an ounce of intellect, I was shocking people. I think it's all about perspective. You can choose to say, oh my God, everyone is underestimating me. What am I supposed to do? But if you choose to change the narrative and say, everyone is underestimating me, let me prove everybody wrong and have that fire in you, you're going to make it. And that's exactly what I did. And I wasn't focused on what everybody else thought of me or the amount of, or the lack of women at the time that there were. I just focused on, I have a quiz in 2 days and I have to focus on that. I have to get through the next air traffic control session in order for me to be one step closer to the end goal. And that's all I focused on. I also didn't have the time to focus on, oh no, it's all men around me, because I knew I have to make it. Otherwise, my sisters and my mom wouldn't have a steady income going in, because my mom stopped working when I got into the air traffic control program because she was really struggling with everything that she was going through and she had to quit. So I was the only stream of income going into the house. And if I didn't make it, my mother and my sisters would struggle. So I didn't have the time to worry about or think about or be conscious of the fact that I'm working in a male-dominated industry. I have to make it for my girls. And that was my only focus. So if anything, I just felt like I had my blinkers on to succeed, because it was not just about me. I had a responsibility to the skies, but I also had a responsibility on the ground to my family because they were relying on me.
So people who don't know what is air traffic controller, would you like to tell them what is air traffic controller officer's role?
So everybody knows, majority of the world knows what a pilot does. So a pilot goes and they fly the aircraft to get from point A to point B. However, there is somebody on the ground as air traffic control telling them what to do. We tell them what altitude to climb or descend to, which direction to go in to ensure they're on the correct flight path to reach their destination. We even tell them, for example, if there's a lot of weather, we even approve which heading that they should take in order to navigate the clouds. Every single action that a pilot takes in controlled airspace is done because air traffic control tells them. So the pilot flies the aircraft, but we're the ones controlling it.
So what's that one thing you love about your profession and journey the most?
The 30th of every month. Payday. And also working with the students and getting them across the finish line, because I realized I do love teaching. So that's something that Miss Cheryl taught me early on, is that I do love to teach and I have a knack for teaching. So I do love teaching and I love to educate and see that my students are getting across the finish line. And it's been approximately 3.5 years since I started my air traffic control instructor journey, and I have a 90% success rate. So it's something that I enjoy and I'm good at. So that is what brings me a lot of joy. But as I mentioned, since I was a kid, the money was the most important part, and I'm not shy to mention that. People say they do it only for the love of the job. No, it's too intense for that. There needs to be another win.
Who is your mentor in your professional journey?
When I was starting my career, I had more mentors, the instructors that I had that were supporting me. At the moment, I have different mentors for different things. So I have a life coach, which helps guide me and steer me and, kind of keep me focused on what it is I want to do next in my life. So she's a mentor to me. There's also a leadership coach that I got introduced to, and it was through a previous mentor that I had at work. And she also helps me gain perspective on what it is that I would like to do in life and what what I would like to do to further my career in aviation and outside of that, since I have multiple avenues and talents that I could tap into. So it's all about seeking that mentorship as well. Some of them are introduced to me because of previous mentors, and some of them I seek out. I seeked out to get a life coach to help guide me through everything. So those are the two very incredible, two very strong women.
So according to you, how would you define success, and what is the role of hard work, smart work, and luck in achieving success?
I believe hard work is required in order to achieve success. I believe that perseverance, persistence, and consistency also is a recipe for success. You can't say you want to do something and not execute action in order to achieve that success. So I think the most important thing in gaining success is having an end goal or having something to focus on in what you are striving towards. So once you figure out what you want to do and what you are focused on, then only can you go backwards and decide what steps need to be taken in order for you to reach there. But the only way to do that is not just to think about it, it's to think about it, figure out what it is, figure out the plan for it, but actually execute the plan. Most people are dreamers, but they're not people who execute the plan. So you have to be brave enough to execute. Like the quote you mentioned at the beginning, don't say one day, make it your day one. Make it your day one. And it's going to be very scary because change, whether it's positive or negative, is frightening. But you have to decide if it's worth it for you.
Rightly said. So if you are able to get hold of time machine, which phase of your life would you like to roll back?
I would like to roll back to the time that I spent in the UK because I knew what I was doing with my life at the time. And I was living in a home with Joy. I call her my British mother. And she was just so supportive and she gave me a lot of stability, which I wasn't used to growing up. And it would be definitely going back to the UK to do the studies there, minus the studying part. That would be nice because it was very stressful to get through that program. It was very tough. So it would definitely be that time. I was 19 studying in the UK, forming my friendships with the batchmates that I was with. And we were building that foundation and getting to know each other and living with Joy. That would be career-wise, that's where I would go back to for sure.
So what does leadership means to you? And according to you, what are the quality of a good leader?
Leaderships don't necessarily have to be people that are your direct managers or the title of manager. It would be somebody that is inspiring, that is actually working with the change, almost kind of like the underdog usually. The people that I know that I have met, for example, they don't necessarily have the role of manager, but they are leaders. And they're the person that cares for the other person and wants them to succeed and gives them the tools to succeed. And I feel like that's what a leader is. And I do have a leader like that in my life, which is a blessing, honestly. So I do believe that all because you have a title of leader doesn't necessarily mean you have the qualities of that.
So what's your say on artificial intelligence?
I think it's great because I use it day to day. My whole house is Alexa'd and I like to talk and get answers from it. ChatGPT helps a lot. I know that there's definitely a dark side to it because with everything there's positive and negative, but I'm choosing to use it to my advantage with what I like to do because I don't like closing the curtains, so I'd rather tell Alexa to do it. And I know it sounds very lazy, but I'm like everything about me is using my voice. So even in my home, I use my voice. I go to work, use my voice to speak to pilots. I come home, I use my voice to speak to my house. I love the tech that I can buy to better my life and make my life easier. Like if I'm cooking in the kitchen, my grandma doesn't like it, but I'm just like, Alexa, set 10-minute timer for rice, something like that. And I just love that I can speak to her, work in the kitchen, put on a song, all of these things. Even with like the phone, the way it's constantly advancing to make communication easier, I'm all for that. ChatGPT has helped me. I have an idea, but it helps fine tune the idea or help brainstorm without me sharing my idea with somebody else who could potentially take my idea. So that's nice.
So what are do's and don'ts you should remember while starting your journey as an air traffic controller officer?
The do is you have to be sure that's what you want, because if you don't want it, if there's even 0.00001% of you that doesn't want it, you won't make it, because you have to really want it because it's very tough. And the don'ts would be that, what would be the don'ts? It's not for the faint-hearted or the weak. You have to be very tough to be able to handle the job. So I would recommend that if you feel like you're not up for the task, not to take it on, and it's not to be discouraging, but it is very difficult. So you have to be very sure that is what you want. If anything, that's the positive and the negative, that you have to be certain that that's the career that you want, because it's definitely not going to be easy. And if you're venturing into it as a woman or as a female, there are more hardships because you're underestimated and people will just try to test you in certain ways, whereas the men won't have to go through that. So just be very sure it's what you want, because it's not going to be an easy journey. And to surround yourself, if you can, with a support group and people that want the same thing for you. Because in my training, I wasn't alone. I had my batchmates, we supported each other. I had Joy in the UK. She supported me so much in a foreign country to succeed. I came back here in Abu Dhabi. My batchmates and I relied on one another. The mentors that I had at work as well, the instructors, there were some that were really on my side and pushing me, and I chose to focus on them instead of anybody who came to me and told me that this wasn't the career for a young woman. So it's all about surrounding yourself with the right people as well. So that's definitely a do. But yeah, the end goal is to be sure that you want it, because if you don't, you're just going to struggle and it'll be a waste of time and money for everyone.
So what would you like to say to graduates who are just entering their professional journey?
It would be to enjoy the fact that you got it in the first place, because I feel like it's very natural to think about the next thing and to want to think about, okay, I got this, now what? What's next? And I think it's very important to celebrate your wins when you do achieve them. So the fact that you got into this career, celebrate that. And after you've celebrated that and taken the moment to be present in that and know that, yes, I have achieved what I've wanted to achieve, then think about the next thing. But if you don't celebrate your wins and you don't appreciate what it is you have achieved in that moment, that's not fair to you, and you're doing yourself an injustice, because at one point in time, you wished to have that. And now that you got your wish, why aren't you happy? Because most people aren't after they've achieved what they wanted to achieve. And I even mentioned that with the TEDx. I achieved what I wanted to achieve with the TEDx, and then I just got really sad because I was like, now what? And I was told, Jouhayna, why don't you just enjoy it? So what did I do? I took my mom, my husband, and my best friend, and we all went out to celebrate. And I made the decision to revel in that moment instead of think, oh, now what do I do now that I've achieved that? And then after I enjoyed it, I moved on to the next thing. So please celebrate your wins, because at one point you wished for what you have now. So celebrate what you have now.
So what advice would you like to give to women who want to enter in the same line in which you are?
To apply regardless, because you lose nothing by applying. And this is not just for women, this is for anybody that's interested in air traffic control. All because I've mentioned it's tough doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And you lose nothing by applying. If you apply and you move on to the next phase and you get in and you keep passing the phases as part of the selection process, because it is a little bit lengthy, then why not? You don't lose anything. You might end up in a career that you actually end up being very good at, because in school I was always told, she has so much potential, we just don't know where to put it. This whole time it was the perfect little recipe to become an air traffic controller. So you just never know. So if you want to apply, apply. If it sparks even 1% of interest in you, apply, because you lose nothing by applying. And this isn't just to air traffic control. It's for whatever it is you think you want to do. Because if there's an application process for you to go through, the first step is to apply. And if you don't knock on the door by an application, how will you ever get in?
So what was the advice which you received when you started your professional journey?
I was told that I should persevere because I would gain a lot of benefit as an individual. So the amount of time off I would get would be good. This came from an instructor and mentor, because he started to notice I was starting to lose faith in the middle a little bit, because it's exhausting. It was very exhausting to go through the whole journey. And he sat me down and he's like, Jo, you have the ability to make it. So just persevere. The time off you get is going to be amazing. If I take all my annual leave and I calculate my days off, I only actually work 6 months of the year. Spread out with a very different schedule to what normal people have, but it's 6 months only that you're working, but you're getting paid for the whole year. The time off you have will be good. You'll be financially stable, so you'll be able to take care of your loved ones, and you will have a career that the people who know about your career will respect you immensely. The minute they hear you are doing air traffic, they will respect you immediately for your achievements and your intellect. So you deserve that. And that was what I was told. My best advice was motivation to carry on, and it is what I needed to hear at the time. So I feel like me saying the best advice I received was a pep talk just goes to show that it's important to surround yourself or have the right people in your life to motivate you later.
So now we'll start a rapid round. So what would we like to be, employed or an entrepreneur?
Employed, easily.
So success in one line.
Money.
Favorite destination?
Maldives.
Your favorite adventure?
Every day with my husband, it's an adventure.
So choose anyone, luck, hard work, or smart work.
Hard work.
Your favorite actor and actress?
Oh, honestly, I don't know. I don't watch enough to like anyone. For some reason, I keep thinking of Hrithik Roshan because I watched him a lot as a child. Hrithik Roshan. Actress, Rani Mukherjee.
Your favorite color?
Green.
In one word, how would you feel as a woman?
Powerful.
So at last, one line that defines you.
Strong.
So thank you very much for your precious time and sharing the life journey. Plus, what is the role of an air traffic control officer on our show and giving advice to the young generation. It's a pleasure to host you on our show. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It means a lot.
My pleasure.